All right, truth seekers, ready to dive deep.
Always.
Today we're talking about a way of thinking that's not just for, philosophers and togas. This is about upping your own mental game.
Yeah.
And it all starts with the Socratic Method.
Sounds intimidating.
Right, but it doesn't have to be, basically. Ever wish you could, channel your inner Socrates
Yeah.
and think through life's big questions with total clarity?
Who hasn't?
Right. Well, our source today is like a crash course in doing just that. It's Wikiversity's page on Socratic Methods. And trust me, it's way more interesting than it sounds. We're talking practical tips you can actually use.
Like right now.
Like right now. So the heart of the Socratic Method, it's all about seeking truths by your own lights.
I like that. Seeking truths by your own lights. It's interesting because we often go through life assuming we understand things, basic concepts. But then the Socratic Method, it kind of reveals that each of us has a unique perspective, our own philosophy, so to speak.
Totally. We all have an idea of what courage means. But if you really start to dig into it, question those assumptions, it's not so simple anymore.
Exactly.
That's where the magic happens.
Exactly. And that's where the Socratic Method really shines. Because it's not just about asking questions, it's about asking the right questions in a structured way, a deliberate process of questioning and examining to get to the core of an issue.
Okay, so less like interrogation and more like intellectual exploration.
Exactly.
I like that. Now, Wikiversity calls this structure approach elenchus. Which I know sounds kind of complicated.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful,
Right.
but it's really just a fancy word for a step-by-step process. Well, like a recipe for critical thinking.
Okay, I like
A
that.
recipe.
Yeah, so first you have your wonder, that initial question that sparks the whole journey.
Okay, so what is courage, really? Or is it really better to have loved and lost?
Exactly, the deep stuff.
Right.
So from that wonder, you move to forming a hypothesis. Your best guess at an answer based on what you know so far.
Okay, so sticking with courage, it could be courage means facing your fears. Or it's the strength to keep going even when things are tough.
Precisely. And this is where things get really interesting, because now we enter the elenchus itself, and we actively challenge that initial hypothesis.
Okay, so we're looking for inconsistencies, poking holes in our own logic.
Exactly.
Seeing if our beliefs actually hold up when we really look at them.
Yes, it's like we're really putting our beliefs through their paces.
It's a mental workout for sure.
Right.
And it can be tough, but that's how we grow.
Totally.
Wikiversity uses this great example of defining courage. You might start with, courage is endurance of the soul.
Okay, yeah, sounds pretty good.
Right, but then you start asking questions like, what kind of endurance are we talking about? Endurance of what exactly? Is it always about the soul, or can there be physical courage?
I see what you mean. It's like suddenly all these different layers are appearing.
Exactly, and those layers add nuance and depth to our understanding.
It's like those optical illusions, where you think you see one thing, and then you shift your perspective just a little, and bam, a whole new image appears.
That's a great way to put it. It's about being open to having your perspective shifted.
And it's not about winning, is it?
Right. It's not about winning or losing at all. It's about that shared journey of getting closer to the truth.
Even if it means changing your mind.
Exactly.
Which can be hard.
It can be.
But so worth it in the end.
Absolutely.
And that brings up another point about the Socratic Method. Choosing the right person to have these conversations with.
So important.
Because not everyone is going to be open to this kind of back and forth.
Right. You need someone who is open to the process, someone who values truth-seeking over always being right.
And Wikiversity actually has a term for this.
They do.
It's called, what is it, doxastic openness?
Yes. Doxastic openness. Basically, it means being willing to actually change your mind when you're presented with new information.
Which is harder than it sounds.
You're telling me.
Right. We all have those beliefs that we cling to, but this is about being brave enough to let them go. If the evidence shows us we need to.
Well said.
And it reminds me of that great quote from John Maynard Keynes.
Oh, yeah.
He said, "When the facts change, I change my mind. What do you do, sir?"
I love that quote. It really highlights the importance of being adaptable.
Right. The world is constantly changing. Shouldn't our beliefs change along with it?
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say you found your open-minded sparring partner. What's next?
The questions.
Right. Because not all questions are created equal.
Totally.
Like asking what's your favorite color isn't going to get you very far.
Not very far at all.
But asking what makes a color beautiful.
Now we're getting somewhere.
Exactly. Wikiversity breaks these questions down into different types.
They do.
Yeah. There are fact questions, preference questions, and controversy questions.
Oh, interesting.
And it's those controversial questions, the ones that dig into deeper meanings and complexities. That's where things get really juicy.
I can see that. Because you're not just getting superficial answers anymore. You're really getting to the heart of what matters.
Precisely. And even within those controversial questions, there's an art to craft to them effectively.
Oh, there is.
Yeah. Socrates was a master at this. He knew how to formulate questions that would really test the strength of an idea.
So there's like a secret formula for Socratic questions.
Kind of. Think of it like this. Socrates wanted to make sure that any definition being considered was, first and foremost, general enough.
General enough.
Yeah, like general enough to cover all the bases. So instead of just saying a leader is someone with a title, he might ask, can someone be a leader without holding an official position?
Okay, so pushing beyond the obvious.
Yes. Testing the boundaries of an idea.
Yeah, I like that.
And along with that generality, Socrates also wanted to make sure the definition didn't include irrelevant information.
Irrelevant.
Like, if you're defining a good life, for example, does it always have to include material wealth? Or can someone be truly happy and live a good life without a lot of possessions?
So you're asking what's really essential to the concept.
Exactly. Stripping away the assumptions.
I like it.
And finally, Socrates looked for explanatory power in a good definition. He didn't just want a label. He wanted to understand the why behind it.
The why. Okay.
Right. So going back to our good life example, instead of just listing qualities like happiness or success, a Socratic question might be, why is happiness considered essential for a good life? What makes it so valuable?
So instead of saying a good life is about family and a good job, it's more like asking, what is it about family that makes for a good life? And are there other paths to that same fulfillment?
Yes, exactly. It's about going deeper, uncovering those hidden principles and assumptions.
Okay, I'm with you. But like any good workout, even with a great partner and killer questions, you got to know when to call it a day.
Right. You don't want to overdo it.
Exactly. You don't want to get stuck in a loop. Or worse, turn a friendly conversation into some kind of like battle of the egos.
Exactly. Wikiversity talks about how a good Socratic dialogue, it should have those natural endpoints, like maybe you've reached a new understanding, or maybe you've hit on some new questions, ones that need even more exploration.
Or maybe it's just time for a snack break.
Huh. Maybe. But seriously, knowing when a conversation has run its course, it's just as important as knowing how to start one.
That makes sense. It also makes me think that there's a difference between this and like being good at debating.
Definitely.
Right. Because in a debate, someone wins, someone loses.
Yeah, you're trying to prove the other person wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's not what the Socratic method is about at all.
Not at all. It's not about winning or losing. It's about that shared search for what's true.
Even if it means admitting you were wrong.
Exactly.
Which can be tough.
It can be. It takes humility.
For sure. And curiosity.
Absolutely.
Okay, so say someone's listening to us right now, and they think the Socratic method sounds pretty cool. How do they actually use it in their life?
The good news is, it's not just some ancient philosophy. There are people using this stuff today in some really interesting ways.
Yeah, like those Socrates cafes I've heard about.
Exactly.
What do those like?
Kind of like a book club. But instead of talking about the latest thriller, you're grappling with life's big questions.
Whoa, okay.
Right? Ethics, relationships, the meaning of life. And you're using the Socratic method to do it.
That sounds intense.
In the good way. It's a chance to connect with other curious people.
I like it.
And it doesn't stop there. Have you heard of street epistemology?
It sounds familiar.
It uses Socratic questioning to help people examine their own beliefs.
Oh, interesting.
So instead of arguing about something, you encourage people to think about WHY. They believe what they believe.
Oh, I get it. So it's about self-reflection, not just winning arguments.
Exactly. And then there's motivational interviewing. It uses a similar approach to help with behavior change.
So like helping someone quit smoking.
Exactly. But instead of just telling them to quit, you help them explore their own motivations for quitting.
That makes sense. It's like empowering them to make a change.
Exactly. And you know what? This kind of questioning and self-discovery, it's not limited to, like, philosophy or therapy.
You're going to say Yoda, aren't you?
Maybe.
I had a feeling.
But it's true. When Yoda says, you must unlearn what you have learned, he's talking about the same thing.
Whoa.
Questioning your assumptions, being open to new ideas.
Okay, mind blown. So the Socratic method, It's like a universal tool for better thinking.
That's a great way to put it. It's not just a theory, it's a way of life.
I love that. So next time you're facing a tough decision or you're wrestling with a big question, channel your inner Socrates, ask those probing questions, see where they lead, and hey, if you do, let us know. Share your experiences on social media. Until next time, keep those minds sharp and those questions coming.